Adam Kramer, it's always good to see. It's like an annual event for you and I, right? Just getting together and hanging out.
It is. As long as Alabama keeps winning football games, we get to get together and hang out. The sun is actually coming out for the first time in
several days.
Oh, goodness. It was dreary. Now, I'm from Chicago, as you know.
You brought this with you?
I told my wife, I said, it's kind of cold here. And she said, well, what is it? Oh, it's like 40 and rainy. She's like, well, it's 2 here. So this is all right. I can deal with this. I love this city, too. I mean, this city is – I was out last night doing my homework of trying to survey the crowd. I was just having a good time. And I love this town, man. This is a great, big game town. And I think leading up to New Year's, this is going to be crazy these next few days. And the other thing I'm curious, I was at the ACC championship game to watch Clemson. I'm curious what the distribution of fans is going to be. What do you think it's going to be? Because I think it could be a split. I think it could be pretty close to 50-50.
Well, now let's go back to Arizona. Clemson beat Alabama out there with probably a 65.
That's what I was going to say, about 65, yeah.
But then Tampa, I mean, it was like, man, I'll never forget it. I'm never going to reveal this player's name. But you and I were sitting down in the end zone when the players came out. You always
size them up.
You and I always love to go down on the field, and they look like monsters.
They
right?
are.
And I'll never forget an Alabama player walking out, and he goes, man, it's like a home field advantage for Clemson. And it was. I mean, down in Tampa. And I've called these Alabama fans out.
I bet you have.
Oh, trust me. And I've said, do not sell your tickets. Throw them away before you give them to a Clemson guy or let an outlet get them to get them to a Clemson guy.
And they are traveling right now. I mean, the ACC championship, and again, that was Miami, so a little bit different. The ACC championship, I'll bet, was 80-20 Clemson. That was close. But ultimately, for me, I'm very interested to see what kind of turnout will be, and also what if you're an Alabama fan, are you waiting for the title game? Or this is a pretty good one, man. Like I feel a personal connection to this game with these two teams because the last two have been good. I'm hoping we get something similar.
So as we go into this game, we're in a place, and there's a risk reward for this game. Okay. Alabama slipped in the back door to get in the college football playoffs. First off, do you think they should be, or do you think they're one of the best 4 teams in college football?
Yeah, they're a 3-point favorite. So, I mean, I know Vegas doesn't decide this thing, but I have a deep affinity and love for Vegas and the way they do things. I'm not saying that's how you have to structure your playoff, but that says a lot. So, I'm an Iowa guy. I went to Iowa. You lose to Iowa by 35 points, you're probably not in the playoff. I don't have a problem with that. Again, Ohio State had its chances, and that's where the discussion is. Do I think it's a little strange that Auburn won its biggest game of the year and had to play another game as a result of that and lost and would have been better on the side? I mean, it's strange. They did backdoor this thing, but do I think they're one of the 4 best teams, most talented teams in college football? Absolutely do. I have no problem with them being here. To me, it really wasn't a controversial decision. I thought it was an easy call. The committee has made it pretty clear. Your bad losses, if you're going to lose close. If Ohio State loses to Iowa by 7 or one of those crazy, weird Iowa City games, they're probably in. You lose by 35. I watched that game in the Michigan outside the Michigan locker room, by the way. That was fun. You're not in. And as a result of that, they got nothing to complain about.
As we move forward here, as we begin to sort of break this game down, is there a matchup that you're watching within this game to eventually decide the outcome?
Well, I want to watch Bo Scarborough slam up against Dexter Lawrence and a new type of energy.
Oh, Lord.
No, truly, I think the line play on both sides is fascinating, but specifically watching Alabama try to get through a defensive line that's got probably, 3-4 first-round picks on it. I mean, they're really, really good. They're, to me, the best defensive line in football. And so I want to see – this is a Bo Scarborough game. We're going to talk about Jalen Hurts, and we're going to talk about the passing game and Calvin Ridley and the distribution of catches. If Bo does not go down last year, they win that game. That's not hot take-ish. That is what it is. So I want to watch a 235-pound man collide into a 340-pound defensive tackle and see what happens. I was in Tuscaloosa for a day last week. They were trying on uniforms for all these ESPN promos and doing all this stuff. and I watch Bo put on his uniform and he's standing there, that man to me still does not make any sense. He does not make any darn sense as a football player. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen Derrick Henry up close. I have never seen anything like Bo Scarborough, and I want to see what he can do. It's been kind of I won't call it a lost year for Bo, but it's been kind of just right?
Well, I don't know if they've been dedicated to running the football.
No, they haven't. And look, Damian Harris was great at times.
He was. He is.
But this is a Bo game. This should be a Bo game. This is a game where you go strength on strength, because I think ultimately the worst thing that you can do if you're Alabama, you and I have talked about it here a few times, is be in 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 8. You cannot be in 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 8. Bad things will probably happen. So you need to rely on who you are and what you do. And I don't think it needs to be. I listen to people always. Oh, they need to stretch the field. They need to show them they can throw deep. If you can hit your playmakers in stride and get yards after catch, and then run the heck out of Bo. Just run them and mix Damian in there too, because he's had a heck of a year. I think you'll be in good shape.
So if you look at the conversation, and I think this is the question when you go back to Brian Dable, if they're dedicated. We had a running back on about 15 minutes ago, former fullback at the University of Alabama from 1992, and obviously he's biased of running the football. But he talked about being dedicated just to establishing the rush. And it's like we have clouded our mind where we believe that a 4-yard play is a negative play. Like you pick up 3 or 4 yards, and it's these coordinators are such a vanity play callers, they almost have that engraved. That's a negative play. But the last time I did math, 4 plus 4 is 8. That sets up a 3rd and 2. And if you get 4 more, I think that pushes past the sticks, and you get a first down, and you keep the football, and you keep it away from the other team.
4-yard plays. I mean, you look at how Alabama lost last year. Clemson ran 100 plays, right? Those weren't 115-yard plays. I mean, Clemson, in a lot of ways, just kind of nickeled and dimed Alabama's defense until it was able to tap out. So as you look at it, a 4-yard play on first down for Alabama is a win. I think second and unpredictable is where Jalen Hurts can be very, very good. You can run him, you can throw him, you can hand the ball off, but there does need to be you want to be who you are, but there's got to be a level of there's got to be a level of unpredictability in there as well. So while we talk about Bo and establishing this and establishing that, they need to find somebody other than Calvin Ridley who can catch passes. You look at the numbers there, and the distribution is all off. And B, I do think ultimately, if you're in 2nd and 4 and 5, that's a great down. I love that down, because that is a down where you can do everything. The whole playbook is open at that point. If they can, first down is such a critical play for them. If they can get some yardage there, you're right. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, but you go back and you watch New England. They're not a team that loves to pound the football.
No.
They like to get their running backs involved, but it's not more of design runs. It's a lot of those little swing passes. It's a lot of screen. If they would do screens, it would work. But I was going back real quick to try to find the actual our average. So you had a running back by the name of Damian Harris in Auburn's game, starting running back, who got 6 carries in a game. 6 carries.
It's bad.
Okay, here's the average. You ready for his average? 8.5 yards per attempt. And you got him, let's count it, 6 carries.
Yep. If you can, I mean, what's he average for the year? 8.1, 8.2, something like that?
It's up there. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be able to find you. Yeah.
So he's averaging 8 yards per carry. And I talk about this being a Bo game. Now I'm going to talk myself into it. Damien, do it.
You're dead on it. 8.2.
8.2.
Yeah.
So you have a running back, your starting running back averaging 8.2. You've got another guy who was a catalyst to your 14-0 lead last year in Bo, who's going to look a lot fresher heading into the play. I mean, you think about Bo last year at this time, like the playoff is really where Bo became Bo. And then I think that's your core. That is who you are. If I'm Nick Saban, he loves to run the dang ball. I think you're going to see a dose of that. But again, it can't be. The cool thing about the evolution of the Alabama offense is they can do some different things, but they seem to have lost their identity a bit along the way in trying to be something.
Even Nick Saban admitted that.
Trying to be something they're not. Be who you are, and you have a quarterback that can do some pretty cool things for you. Like you have a quarterback that, if you're running the ball, becomes really difficult to deal with. If you're running it traditionally, he becomes kind of a nightmare. You get him in a rhythm, you get the pieces around him going, I think he'll be much, much better.
I do too. I mean, it's like...
It's a big game for him.
It's a gigantic game. Adam, I've said this multiple times. I'm not sure if you agree. You've covered this dynasty. Mm-hmm. You've been impressed with Alabama's dynasty. But Alabama's playing for two different things Monday. If they lose, the dynasty's it's done. Now, and I'm talking about you may restart it, but this one is you've stuck a fork in it. Auburn took your lunch money, they whipped you, and then in Clemson, if that happens. Now, I'm not saying it will,
sure.
but if also it's the standard. Clemson takes that step as the premier program in college football. If they win Monday night, they become the standard, and Alabama's left in the dust.
I think about a conversation you and I had 3 years ago when we were watching on the field, and we were talking about the bellies that Clemson had. Remember that? We were watching it,
sure.
and you're sizing those teams up. I always think about that because Clemson had bellies 3 years ago. They don't have bellies anymore. There are no bellies on that team, man. That team's built up.
I saw Christian Wilkins the other day. I'm telling you, he reminded me like of an Alabama player, like Ashawn Robinson.
Yep.
That time. I mean,
that's the guy they're recruiting. That's the guy they're developing now. So it's interesting to watch the evolution of Clemson, and you can hear it in the way Alabama's talking about them now too. Not that there was any ever like a level of disrespect, but I feel like there's just a level of mutual admiration for this team and what they've done. I think it's fun to watch. They do it differently. Obviously, Dabo's much different, but they are, they just get 3 of the top 9 high school seniors in the country to commit there a couple weeks ago, right? This is who they are now. They're not going to go away. They've got a much easier path year to year to get to this than Alabama does. So you're right. Clemson is really, if they win this game, they are, to me, they are the team to beat in college football. That's not a hot take. That's just you win it 2 years in a row.
What's the truth?
That's what you are.
It's honest reality.
That's reality. Doesn't mean that I don't think Alabama suddenly is just some also ran
7-win season. No, we're not talking about that. But it's just the standard.
The pecking order changes, and that's a big deal. That is a big deal. It's a big deal, Nick Saban. I mean,
and that's what concerned me this morning, talking to several players for Alabama. And one of the things that they said is this is just another game. Adam, it's not just another game.
No.
And I know that that's the Nick Saban process. It's just another game. This is not just another game. This is a chance to keep your dynasty alive.
It is definitely not just another game to them, to us, to anybody. I mean, to me, first 2 games have been extraordinary. Now, I think we'll see a different version. I think scoring is going to be low in this game. I think this is going to be pretty ugly. And a good ugly. But to say that this is another game, that's just somebody talking to you in your car on the way over to the media settings to say, hey, when somebody asks you this, what are you going to say, right? Like, that's somebody feeding you answers. If you really, truly feel like this is another game, and deep down they don't. Deep down, I imagine they're still angry. I'd be angry about last year. You ripped their heart out. I would be feeding them that. Not only this game, but all season long.
But think about the mindset. And Adam, you and I always get in these deep psychological conversations. Okay, but think about this, okay, mentally. Clemson's statement this week, have you heard their motto? Leave no doubt. That is their motto. It's not about beating Alabama. It's about leaving no doubt. I mean, think about that. That's a slap in Alabama's face.
And I, again, from someone who has just an outsider, that's cool. That's a great. And this is the difference between Dabo and Saban. Clemson guys have been much looser this week, much looser, much freer to talk about whatever it is, and that's the Alabama way. But there is this is how it starts. It's how it started with Alabama. Hope turns into assurance, turns into an arrogance, and it's good arrogance of we're going to beat up everybody. I think Clemson has that now. It doesn't mean they're going to win, but I think Clemson is convinced after this that they're probably the best team in college football, and I don't necessarily disagree with that right now. I think they can be if they're able to fire on all cylinders. But they've got they're not a perfect team by any means. You don't lose to Syracuse and
a 4-18.
You know, that it was a weird game, and that whole dome weird things happened there, and their quarterback was hurt, et cetera, et cetera. But you can't lose to Syracuse and feel like you're invincible. And Clemson certainly is not. No one in this playoff is invincible. That's actually the really cool thing about this year. Alabama's got a mortal feel to them finally, and I would not be shocked if any of these 4 playoff teams won. There's something kind of different about that.
We're moving forward right here. Adam Kramer, National College Football Analyst. Let me ask you, and just I'm going to get your prediction, but let's say Clemson offense against Alabama's defense. Let me put a sort of a little mention in there, a little disclaimer. A healthy Alabama defense. They stay healthy. Who do you like in that matchup? Clemson offense, Alabama's defense.
I'd probably give the advantage to Alabama's defense, a slight one, if they're healthy. ACC championship games, a mini microscope scouting report. Kelly Bryant's a better thrower than I think people probably give him credit. I've heard some Alabama guys say that this week as well. He completed his first 15 throws. You don't do that by chance. They were a lot of safe throws, boundary plays where they're going on the outside. I think that's something that works into Alabama's favor. Miami doesn't have necessarily the speed to keep up with what Clemson did or does. Alabama does. They also don't necessarily have a power running game. And my concern, when I watched Mississippi State, Alabama, that was a weird moment because I'm watching Alabama just get pushed back off the line. That was a weird moment for me. It's who is real? You know, now they're going to get a lot healthier. I think that's going to help. I think offensively, Clemson, a lot depends on what Bryant does. He's going to run the ball a lot in this game. His yards per carry, about 3.8. Watson last year was 3.7. But the way they carry it is different. Watson, very finesse, kind of open field guy. Bryant's a bit more of a battering ram. I mean, he's a big dude. I don't know if you saw him. He's a big man. So that's something that Alabama's probably licking their chops out because he'll get out in the open field and run, and he'll put his head down. So I'm interested to see those moments, what they decide to do. But a huge part of their success is getting him on the move.
So going to the other side of the football, you give Alabama the slight edge on that side of the matchup. Then you match up Clemson's defense, one of the most talented, if not the most talented, and then a limping offense that limped into the month of November and that is coming in with, as we talked about, they're having an identity crisis.
Yeah, I'd give the advantage to the defense
Easy.
again. Yeah, I would. And look, I did a profile of Dexter Lawrence for Clemson, who I don't think he spoke yet. We'll see him tomorrow. He's 340 pounds. He's a monster. It starts with the defensive line, but the linebackers are very good. And, again, strength on strength, what you're going to do. So, but for me, that's, both defenses to me have a pretty decisive advantage. But I've thought that in some of the last 2 games, and they turned into, shootouts. So you never know what will happen and how the game's pace will be dictated. But from the onset, it looks like, points will be at a premium.
So Alabama, they want to make this game ugly, right?
Yes.
It favors Alabama if this thing is like a 17-14 type game.
Yes, it does. And I think you saw Clemson do a little bit of that this year, too. Like, there were, Virginia Tech was an ugly game. Auburn, pretty ugly. Games like that, Clemson can play in. But if you're Alabama, you want this to be a fist fight. Like, that's your comfort zone, too. Like, that's your identity. When you have to score 38, 41 points to win a football game, Nick Saban hates that. Obviously, and again, that gets into a place where that means you're having to do something where you don't want to do. That means your game plan is basically out the window when you have to do that. And we've seen Alabama play those games and win those games, but it's come at the hands of an onside kick. It's come, defensive touchdowns, things like that are going to have to happen if Alabama's going to win that game because that means you're going to have Jalen just sit back there and throw the ball, 40 times, 35 times. Like, you don't want that. You do not want that.
So what's your lean? What's your prediction?
I have a slight lean to Clemson. Now, let's talk about the spread.
If you want to dive into that, we can't because I know numbers.
I had a lean, and again, I'm worried a little bit about my own recency bias. I saw Clemson in Charlotte, and I was just impressed physically with them. And I may have, and that might be a problem for me. I had a lean with Clemson, close, tight, ugly, under. But that 3-point spread for Alabama is really interesting to me. And I'm not one of those Vegas knows guys. Those lines are dictated by the odds makers and then ultimately the people. Alabama always has support from the public. That spread, if you're an Alabama fan, that's a big deal. The fact that you're favored in this game by 3, I think, is a.
Are you talking about the movement or the initial line?
Both. Because it really has. It was what 2.5.
It opened up at 1.5, and it's moved up to 3. And I actually saw it earlier today. For just a brief moment, it was at 3.5 points.
That's a big jump. So the moment you get over 3, that's significant, right? Like the moment that's a power move.
Neutral field.
Yeah. So that gives me cause for pause, and it's I always say that with Vegas. Vegas knows what they're doing in this.
Okay, so it's at 3. One place 3.5, and matter of fact, one place is 2.5. So there's your range.
And I think you'll probably close around 3. I'd be surprised if it closed 3.5 because at 3.5. You probably jump in and take Bama plus more than a field goal. But what scares me with picking Clemson, I have buddies who gamble, everybody who does, and I can't tell you how many of them say, "How is Clemson the underdog? That's free money." I hate hearing that. I hate hearing that because it's like a sucker convention, right? Like everybody's lining up. Oh, Clemson's.
But you always go the opposite way.
Oh
of the public,
yeah,
right?
I mean contrarian. I'm not saying that's how it's going to be or that's how it is, but I can tell you, as someone who picked Clemson in a really close game, when I have people start lining up to tell me that's run and hide from that game.
It's always go opposite from the public.
Yep.
All right, so you like Clemson to win the game.
I do.
So you're like that therapist that's been with us for like the last 25 minutes, and you've sort of counseled us, and you've talked
That's a very
us,
polite way.
Right. You've talked us down from the cliff, and then you right at the end of the therapeutic session, you say, but you got to go get it done. You got to quit what you're.
Here's the thing, though. Like, and people are predicting, Clemson blowout. Like, I am not. I have watched too much of Alabama to say something that stupid that they don't belong on the same. There's some takes out there right now. Like, people forget this is Ala-friggin-Bama. Like, this is, you know what I mean? And also, I think the talking to people like this time off, without a doubt. I think you see a much different team. And I'm not saying, I mean, if we see what we did against Auburn, I guess, I'll be shocked. And I don't think you will. That was a mess from start to finish. I think this will be a really good, ugly game. And I'm picking Clemson and I'm picking Georgia, and I have as little confidence in those picks. Like last year, you pick against Washington. Okay, whatever, that's fine. I have very little confidence in what I'm picking this year, and that, you know what, that's a sign of a really good playoff. And I'm glad I don't have any gambling or rooting interests involved because it's tough.
We're moving forward. Certainly, Adam Kramer, BleacherReport.com. What you working on down here, man? What do you? I mean, because you've always got your.
Oh yeah, I've got some.
And I don't want you to give like your hints away, but
I've got one story I'm going to keep close to the vest here because it's cool. And if Alabama wins, I'm going to have to turn it around quick. If not, it'll be preseason or spring piece. One of the things I do want to focus on though is the history of the running back position at Alabama and how Nick Saban's gotten like the best running backs in the country consistently to buy into a system where they will probably not be a star in a sense of carries and yards, but they can go make a lot of money in the NFL and they can save their legs. And I think it's really interesting. It goes away from what you see elsewhere. You look at how many carries Nick Chubb has had and Royce Freeman and all these other guys. I think the history of running backs at Alabama, Damian Harris is a perfect example of this, of a guy who's going to enter the NFL, likely probably going to leave after this year, with very little mileage on him. And a guy that's going to make a ton of money and maybe be the best running back in this class, with the exception of a guy like Saquon Barkley, who I think is a video game cheat code. But I think it's a fascinating thing. And then the other thing, is Dylan Moses going to be at Media Day tomorrow?
Okay. See, they've done that some with the players, but a lot of times they're not made available. I would see Alabama, in some ways, they're not consistent with that. I mean, we've been able to get guys like, like Shondae Hamilton. Obviously, his career's done at Alabama. Sometimes they make those guys available.
Eddie Jackson last year, was he available? I want to say he was.
I think he was.
I think he was
so
too.
It's kind of, but now also it's our first chance to talk with the freshmen.
Yeah.
And you're talking about running backs buying in.
Well, Najee's going to be a busy man tomorrow.
He's going to be very, very busy, but I tell you, somebody else going to be very, very busy, and that's Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, could you imagine the questions that's going to be hitting him? I mean,
are you going to play in this game?
Well, I mean, are you? But I mean, there's a lot of things that Adam. I know I'm going to let you go, man. But you look at Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. You got a true sophomore. You've got a freshman.
Yeah.
Something's got to give.
Oh, this game will dictate if there's a quarterback competition next year, which there probably will be anyways. But deep down, if it's how competitive it's going to be, and I know people out there are probably thinking there better be a quarterback competition, and it's hard to argue with right now. But this game will shape some of that. So I'm interested.
Well, at least if you're Nick Saban, you got to sell them that there's a competition.
Of course, there always is. But I'm interested. Dylan Moses, I've done some digging on him, fun research, and just heard some incredible things. I want to size him up physically. And look, man, this guy that was really putting it together.
Good-looking kid. He's the next.
Oh, and his development is expedited for an Alabama standard. Like usually you got to be a junior. Reuben Foster, it takes years. He feels like a kid that physically he might be as crazy of an athlete as they've had on defense, which again says something.
Yeah, pretty amazing. You're going to be impressed. I know you.
I'm excited.
I know what you always go for. So,
I'm doing the weird stuff.
So final question: have you written the obituary for Alabama?
No, I'm not going to write that. And I probably won't write it afterward until Nick Saban says enough with it. And I hope that's not – I don't think that's for a little while.
Okay. Well, we like to ask the national guys if they've written this because you know –
How many times has that been written over the last 8-9 years?
Think about it, though. You know – I'm not saying your colleagues, but your folks at the national level, Tuesday we'll wake up. The dynasty's dead. Alabama's dead. Nick Saban's done. It's finished. Think about Tuesday morning.
It's happening. And I'm sure if they lose, my editor asked me, hey, you going to write about Alabama? No, because when your roster is as good as this, they still have, next year, and they will still have the best roster in college football entering the season. They will, at least for a little while longer. It would be journalistically stupid to write that it's dead when you know they're probably going to be in this position next year. They may not be as dominant as they've been at times. And somebody asked me today kind of, the trajectories of these programs. Well, it's hard for Alabama to go up. They either hold serve or they go down. That's kind of a tough position. You think about the weight of that. There's a weight to that, but that's where Alabama is.
Adam Kramer, thanks again, man.
Of course.
You have provided a ton of calmness.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I mean you've now you
got some. Yeah,
your buddy coming up a little bit later. Not so
well,
much.
he is one to throw chum in the water. So
he is.
So it's just his natural state.
He comes on every Monday at 3:30 with us. My mentions goes up significantly when Barry comes in.
The things that he gets said to him on Twitter, it's amazing. But
I don't know if I could take it.
Oh, I don't think so either. He genuinely doesn't seem to mind.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
But he has some really good things to say about Alabama.
He knows this team very well, so I'm interested to hear what he has to say.
He writes about college football, BleacherReport.com. Adam Kramer, go enjoy New Orleans, my friend.
I will do that. Thank you, buddy.